my name is Chloe, and today I'm here to talk about my September reading. So we're going to talk about some stats. We're going to talk about my favorites. But I'm going to tell you guys, it was a hard month. It was a rough reading month. It was a great month life-wise. It was a hard reading month. And I have more DNFs in this month than any other month this year. So let's just get into the stats. So I read 42 books. So it was not a quantity problem. It was a quality problem. I read 42 books and DNF'd 5. That's 10,539 pages or 351 pages per day. However, there is a lot of middle grade. You will see a lot of middle grade, a lot of graphic novels. I read each book length was 251 pages per book. That was the average. So I read about a book and a half a day, but again, take that with a grain of salt. I read 6 with my kids and 36 by myself. 21 were adult, 1 was young adult, and 20 were middle grade. So almost half of my reading was middle grade this month, which is great. But I read 22 novels, 9 chapter books, 9 graphic novels, and 2 in verse. So 22 novels and then 20 in either graphic novel, chapter book, or verse. So again, that shows you the numbers. This is why another reason I feel like it was rough. I read 13 off my shelf and 29 from somewhere else. I don't like that. I love to be reading off my shelf. It motivates me. Like I'm doing this intentionally, obviously. It was like some self-sabotage this month where I just kept picking other stuff up from Libby or the library, which is great. I want to use those services, but I want to be emphasizing my shelf a little bit more. I read 20 on Libby, 13 from the library, 3 on Hoopla, which doesn't happen very often, 2 from Libro FM, 2 from NetGalley, and 2 just off my shelf. Notice there was no Spotify listed. I completely spaced on that. So there's that. Then 20 were on audio, 15 were physical, and 7 were ebook. 15 were new releases, and 27 were backlist. So again, I got very distracted by the shiny things this month. My genres in my spreadsheet, the top genres were contemporary, followed by nonfiction, and then kind of trailing behind is romance, magical realism, women's fiction, historical, mystery thriller, and sci-fi fantasy. You guys, I read a large variety of genres, but by far my most read were contemporary and nonfiction this month. Storygraph said my moods were emotional. Emotional, I think, has been number 1 every month, which is really interesting. I'm not doing that intentionally, and I don't actually on Storygraph give like any sort of feedback about that kind of stuff. So this is just from other people's feedback. But emotional, reflective, lighthearted, informative, and hopeful. And on Storygraph, I only track my adult reads. And so that is a little bit different. It's only the books that I read for myself. Storygraph said the pace was 22% slow, 57% medium, and 22% fast. Storygraph has taught me that better months have more fast reads. Again, I don't really put that on my reviews, and so this is all other people's opinions. But having a lot of slow reads really bogs me down. And apparently so does having medium. So I DNF'd 5. I gave 1 2-star, 5 2.5 stars, 10 3 stars, 16 3.5 stars, and 3.5 to me is very middle of the road. It's like I would recommend it if you're interested, or you could take it or leave it. I know, like, I am a stingy 5-star rater, but I'm a very generous 3.5-star rater. So my 3.5 is probably like other people's 3s. Then 8 4 stars, 2 4.5 stars. And so my average was 3.37. Now, again, that includes everything that I read, including stuff with my kids, including middle grades, including graphic novels. Now, my Storygraph average, which is just my adult reads, is 3.14. So again, 3.5 is like, I'd recommend it if you're interested. So being well below that, I was not liking things. And so I went to come up with my like 5 best, and it was hard. It was hard to do. But let's talk about my 5 favorite, and then we'll talk about my ultimate bookshelf count. Am I going in the right direction in my goal to get to 300? So 1 second, and let's talk about my favorites. Okay, I was going to try to compile them all, but I've already returned some to the library, and they're all kind of scattered, and we have 5 minutes before we need to leave for church, so I'm going to go ahead and just tell you. The first one was Sugar Shack by Lucy Knisley. So I was struggling, like I said, to come up with ones, and so the first 4 are graphic novels, and then I have 2 adult books that I really enjoyed. I could only come up with 2 adult ones. So I'm going to tell you about these 4 graphic novels and then the 2 adult books. So Sugar Shack by Lucy Knisley is number 3 in her Peapod Farm series. And I didn't think you needed to read them in order. I have read them in order, but I gave it to my daughter and she was like, Mom, what about these things? And so she felt like you needed to read them in order. She felt a little lost not knowing some relationship dynamics. But if you have read the first 2, this is about a girl who moves from the city to the country with her mom after a divorce and her mom's new husband. She has 2 new stepsisters and just trying to figure life out. It's their fall vibes to the extreme. If you are looking for something to read right now, I would highly recommend this graphic novel and really anything by Lucy Knisley. Then Knots by Colleen Frakes. So this is about a girl who wants long blonde hair, and her family's always made her have short hair, so she tries to bleach it herself, and it goes wrong. Lots of lessons learned. It was a great book, and like really heartfelt too. Then Dream On by Shannon Hale. So this is a book that I could relate to a lot because this girl just it's about a middle grade girl who just feels things very deeply. Everything, her family's always telling her she's too much and just she has too many feelings, all that kind of stuff. And she feels things very deeply and everything, it kind of causes some anxiety and things. And I loved it. Then Millie the Manor by Karina Evans and Andrea Bell. So this is a graphic novel that I just talked about in my weekly wrap up. So I won't say much about it here except that it is about a girl with social anxiety who gets invited to a murder mystery party. And I want to go to a murder mystery party. I thought the anxiety rep was so great. She talks to a therapist. Like there's all these things, lots of coping strategies. It was great. Then the 2 adult books I enjoyed really is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. I don't know how she does it, but this is about a vet and a gal who brings her cat in, and her cat has a physical deformity. And so the vet's like, hey, I don't think she's going to make it. Like, I don't think this is going to work out well for her. And she's like, no, I'm going to take her and get this fixed. And so she does, and the cat survives, and a relationship blooms. And she is about to move. He's in Minnesota, as most of her books are. And she's about to move to California to take care of her mother, who is struggling with early onset Alzheimer's. And so definitely a trigger warning there. He comes from verbally abusive parents and a rougher background there. Like, he's got some definite baggage there. And watching them fall in love, I laughed. I literally laughed out loud, which doesn't happen very often. I got teary. Like, I felt all the things. I don't know how Abby does it. I loved this book. And then the last one is Decluttering at the Speed of Life by Dana K. White. This is a book that just really helped me, especially in this season of I'm going through some not spring cleaning but fall cleaning where I'm just really wanting to purge things. And so I listened to actually 2 of her books while decluttering and getting rid of stuff, and it was just so helpful. Her strategy is not the whole make a bigger mess before you clean up the mess, which I can really appreciate because my stage of life, I have very small chunks of time, and generally very small chunks of time. And so if I get everything out of a room, it'll take a week to get it put back together, if not longer. And so that doesn't work for me right now. What works for me right now is doing small things. And so she talks about decluttering versus organizing, and how decluttering is just getting rid of stuff, not finding the perfect spot for things, but just getting rid of stuff. And so it was really motivating and very practical and very conversational, and I really, really enjoyed it. So those are the things I would recommend out of the whole list that I've read. If you want to know what the 5 DNFs were, go back through my weekly wrap-ups. I will talk about them more there. But at the beginning of September, I started with 367 books on my TBR, on my physical TBR. Now, at the end of September, I have 354 books. So that is 13 down, and that makes the goal feel somewhat reasonable. However, I'm a couple days in October and not reading off my shelf still, but I only read 13 off my shelf. So you're thinking, did you not haul any? I saw an in and out. No, I unhauled the entire Miss Julia series except book 1, and so that really helped. Without that, I don't know where my numbers would be, but that is everything for my September reading. Here's to hoping October is better. Let me know the best thing you read in September and any fun stats you have, because I love stats. So that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.